It's time for us to have a conversation about health, and menopause is our topic for today. We're going to be talking and deconstructing, trying to understand, make sense of what is menopause. Dr. Kelvin Owusu, who is the medical director of Optimal Care Diagnostics Center, is here with us, and he's going to help us to understand. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well, and you?
Fantastic. Yeah. So, menopause. Let's debunk all the myths about menopause and understand what is it really? What is menopause?
Well, it just means men should pause.
Men should pause. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well, basically it's a period in a woman's life when the hormones, reproductive hormones, begin to decline. And as a result, the woman will begin to stop menstruating and eventually actually stops menstruating.
Okay.
In other words, the woman after menopause cannot become pregnant naturally or normally. So that's really what menopause is all about. It's a series of events that eventually leads to cessation of menstruation. That's all.
I see. So, when does a woman get into menopause? Does menopause happen to all women?
Yes, menopause happens to all women, but not at the same time. So we know that it usually would start. I mean, there's a range. Usually by 45 to about 55, most women would have undergone menopause. Some people do start it earlier. Others also go a bit later. But the average is between 45 years to 55 years. The African women tend to have menopause earlier.
How come?
It's difficult to say. But we also know that the African women also tend to have a shorter, generally speaking, a shorter lifespan. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they tend to have menopause earlier. So it's one of those things. But it's known that...
So it's an evolutionary compensation.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, so menopause is it an event? Or is it a process?
It's a process. And in fact, some women begin the symptoms leading to menopause as early as 12 years to the time. So we are saying yes. So the median age for menopause is around 50-51. That's the median age.
Okay.
So if you're going to start menopause 12 years before you are 50, that means you're talking about 48, thereabouts. People start experiencing symptoms that will eventually lead to menopause. Most women, however, will start noticing symptoms about 4 years to menopause.
I see.
And so it depends on your family history. So if your grandmother had menopause early, let's say at the age of 45, your grandmother or your mother had her menopause.
Yeah.
You might also have your menopause at around that age. So let's say by the time you are 40, you may start noticing some symptoms that will of course, initially most women will not be aware that these are menopausal symptoms.
This is what it is. Okay.
Yes, but as time goes on, it becomes the discomfort and the uncertainty makes them report to hospital, and eventually investigations will point that it's likely menopause that you are beginning.
Okay, so now I'm curious.
Okay.
Because you said that you'll start noticing some symptoms.
Yes.
Take us to the symptoms of menopause.
Okay, so the most dramatic of the symptoms that everybody seems to be aware about is the mood swings and the night sweats.
Okay.
So you notice that suddenly, even though your fan is the same fan you've been using and is blowing as it's supposed to be blowing, you feel it's hot. You start sweating in the night. There's no other explanation. That you are not sick, but then you are sweating. You are uncomfortable. You start snapping at people left and right. You are emotionally unstable. These are the common dramatic symptoms that a lot of people know about. In fact, even in the movie, these are the ones that they would usually talk about. But there are other symptoms as well that make menopause a bit uncomfortable. Okay. And one of the most common ones, or one of the most distressing ones, is irregular menses.
Okay.
So it begins by maybe one month here, your menses doesn't come, or it doesn't come on time. You've had a regular cycle for most of your life. Then suddenly you start skipping, your menses start skipping some dates. That can be very distressing because every woman plans for their, I hope every woman plans for their menstruation. So, some people even keep a calendar. Now the date has come. You know that you haven't been sexually active. You know you're not pregnant, but why is my menses not coming?
It's delayed. Okay.
Exactly. And so it begins like that, irregular, sometimes on 1 month, off the next month. Then it gets to a point you now start getting longer blocks of no menstruation, and then it surprises you one day, so it becomes difficult to plan. So it's quite distressing. And then eventually, maybe 4 years or so after it started, then there's no menstruation at all. So the commonest thing you experience during the premenopausal period, heading into menopause, is irregular menstruation, which eventually leads to cessation of menstruation completely. There are other things that you go through. Of course, the emotional instability is actually true, and we don't know the specifically what is causing it, but we know that even during the fertile period, when the woman is having her normal menstruation, they still go through mood swings or mood variations during the menstrual cycle. So we know that there's some association between some of the hormone levels. The menstrual cycle is different hormones playing ups and downs every few days, and that results in the emotional instability. When it's getting to menopause, this variation becomes more dramatic, and then the woman responds with the emotional outburst. Something so simple can become a big deal.
Okay.
I mean, if your mother or your wife or whoever is going through menopause, you understand what you're talking about. Something that she would have ignored previously now becomes a major issue in the family, and it's probably because of menopause.
I see.
And there are more serious symptoms as well. And one of those symptoms is that when you reach menopause, or when you're getting to menopause, and usually after menopause, women's blood pressure tend to go up. So before menopause, men have a higher risk of developing hypertension than women.
Okay.
After menopause, women take the lead.
I see.
So women now have a higher risk of hypertension after menopause. Now, there are two theories. We don't know specifically which is which, but there are two theories. The first theory is that when you reach menopause, you tend to gain weight.
Okay.
So now, is it the weight gain that is causing your blood pressure to go up? So that's the first theory. The second theory is saying that the fact that you are going through menopause means the hormones are going down, and these hormones may have played a role in keeping your blood pressure low. So now, if the hormones are no more, then it could be the reason why your blood pressure is going up.
Okay.
But bottom line is there's definitely a blood pressure increase after menopause. And so women have to be more cautious about what they eat, about whether they are active, whether they are exercising and all those. It becomes more important after menopause to do these things to keep your blood pressure in check. Another thing is that your bones, and as a woman, your bones become more brittle after menopause. And so you are more likely to have a fracture after menopause than before menopause, because the hormones were protective of the bones before menopause, but now the hormones are no more. And so it's going to make you more pretty. So if you were to fall after menopause, you are more likely to break your bone than if you had fallen before menopause. So it's very, very important. You need to be extra careful after you hit menopause. Of course, there are some advantages of menopause, though. They may not see it as an advantage, but there is one major advantage of menopause.
What's that?
Which is that, well, for one thing, you don't have to buy sanitary pads anymore. That's a very, very important thing. But what I'm actually referring to is that when it comes to fibroid, now fibroid is known. One of the things, the associations of fibroid is hormones. So the hormones actually stimulate the growth of fibroid. So all through the fertile period, your fibroid, if you do, most African women have fibroid anyway, and so it will continue to grow so long as your hormones are still active. So even if you remove the fibroid, so that's why most doctors would delay fibroid surgery as much as possible, because if you remove it early, another one will grow anyway. But once menopause occurs, the hormones are removed from there, and so there's no more.
Fibroids are starved.
Exactly, and so they begin to involute, they begin to regress. So if you did nothing about your fibroid after menopause, it will most likely regress. If it was not too big, it will probably involute and then disappear.
I see.
But if it's significantly big, you might still need an intervention. But fibroid actually reduces in size after menopause. So that's actually a major advantage of menopause.
Then of course there's family planning. You have to think about that.
Exactly. Now let me also chip in that because the hormones are reproductive hormones, which means the hormones are geared towards reproduction. And so any part of the body that is part of the reproductive cycle is stimulated. So one of the terrible consequences of menopause is vaginal atrophy, vaginal dryness. So the act of sexual intercourse becomes it becomes a bit uncomfortable, painful, and there might even be bleeding afterwards. And so you have to be understanding if you're a partner, if you're a man and your wife is going through menopause, you have to be understanding and then there are things you can use to help manage the situation at that point, but it is part of the menopause symptom that the vagina will be dry, and so you might have to do extra work to get the lubrication needed for the activity to commence. Extra work, yes, extra work. You have to earn your keep.
I see. Okay. Just a quick question, a side question, but in terms of you've explained that the hormonal activities and all that. So curiously, do men, because I've never heard it said, do men ever experience any of this, either menopause or fibroids or any of these things? Menopause.
No, actually, yes, men do go through something we call andropause.
Andropause, okay.
But it's not as dramatic as the women's version. I mean, in the male, all that happens is that their libido tends to go down.
Okay.
Because the sexual hormones, there's a decrease in production, and so it results in a decrease in libido, a decrease in the potency of your sperm and all those things.
Okay.
But it doesn't really remove much. There's still activity. I mean, you could still get a woman pregnant even in your old age. So the men version, the andropause, is not as dramatic as menopause is. It doesn't really do much. So
it takes me to some biblical scriptures. I'm thinking about Abraham in particular, delivering a baby.
Yes.
After 100 years.
But the thing is, and even if you look at Abraham's wife, those days, at least from the records that we have, they tended to live much longer. Because I mean, they were living much healthier life. There were no cars, there were no processed foods. They were eating more natural things, so they were living much longer. So even though yes, Sarah was older and had, from the description, she probably had reached menopause. Yeah. It's also possible that her menopause didn't start at the 40 years that we are having.
But much later.
Much later.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, it's a miracle to have a baby at that age. However, looking at the lifespan that they were living at that time, it's also not unusual to have to assume that she was probably still fertile at that point. But you and I were not there, so
the famous things. Fibroids. Has it ever been known for a man to get fibroids?
No.
Okay.
No. It's not. So fibroid is a tumor that is originating from the womb. And men don't have wombs, so therefore we cannot have fibroids.
Okay. Let's talk about the issue of insomnia.
Yes. So again, it's all part of the symptoms of the menopause. So insomnia, anxiety, night sweat. I mean, if you are feeling uncomfortable, if you are itching, you are sweating, you don't feel, obviously you're not going to have a good sleep. And so related to the insomnia comes the tiredness, which also would lead to the mood swings, because again, if you are tired, you're more likely to snap at whoever is talking to you because you want to sleep, but you're not able to sleep. So all this, we don't know if the insomnia is as a result of the difficulty, the discomfort.
Yeah.
Of the sweating and feeling uneasy or what. But the thing is, we know that there's some amount of difficulty. First of all, it's difficulty falling asleep, and then difficulty maintaining that sleep.
Okay.
Those are two different things. Okay. There are people who cannot fall asleep.
Yeah.
As in they struggle to fall asleep. Yeah. And there are people who don't struggle to fall asleep, but they struggle to stay asleep. Those two things are different. But in menopause, it looks like everything is mambo jumbo.
Yeah. Well, viewers, as you're watching, if you have any questions for Dr. Kelvin Owusu, kindly send them with the hashtag BreakfastDaily. And our WhatsApp line is 0550-585832. If you happen to be outside Ghana, kindly prefix that with +233. And we'll read out your questions and he can answer them whilst he's here in the studio. So, anxiety and depression. Talk to us about that.
So, anxiety, and well, again, so now you know how you are as a woman. You know what you are able to do. Now suddenly your whole life is pretty much upside down because you are not able to sleep. And so you wake up in the morning, you are tired, you can't meet your deadlines because you are not in the right frame of mind, you are upset about very basic things. So it's really an emotionally, how do I put it, charged, it's not charged, it's discomforting. Let me just, the English is not coming. It's quite uncomfortable. And so you begin to think, is it that is there something wrong with me? Am I abnormal? And you see, once you start having these kind of thoughts, depending on your own biochemistry or your own setup, it can now veer off into something else, because anxiety pretty much is heightened sense of something going to happen.
Yeah.
It might be real or it might not be real.
Okay.
And so now you are anxious, and anxiety and depression, they tend to go together. Somebody who has an anxiety issue could tip off into depression. In the same way, somebody who has a depression issue could tip off into anxiety. And so one thing leads to another. Am I normal? Why am I snapping at my children? They are my children. I mean, I love them. Why am I not able to show that love? Why is that when they come close to me, I want to push them away because I'm feeling uncomfortable? So it can, some people can get into anxiety and depression issues just because of these changes that is going on.
Yeah.
On the other hand, too, could it also be that the hormone withdrawal is also what is causing the anxiety? It's difficult to know for sure what is going on.
Okay.
But what we do know is that they tend to have anxiety issues, and some of them may also have depression issues. So it is real.
Okay. So the very first symptom that I ever heard about growing up for menopause was hot flashes.
Yes.
What are those?
So the hot flashes is what we are talking about. The night sweat, feeling of discomfort and all that. Okay. And you literally feel hot, like you are hot. And it happens, I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes you are driving in town and then suddenly you feel like your air conditioning has gone off.
Yes.
Yes, so that's the kind of feeling.
Okay.
So and then you roll down the glass.
It's like suddenly there's heat.
Exactly. Suddenly you can't really explain it.
Okay.
It happens once in a while. Almost everybody goes through this every now and then. It's not a big deal. But imagine you're having it several times a day.
Wow.
Exactly. So then
really?
how can you have a coherent conversation with somebody else when every few minutes you feel like taking off your clothes?
Wow.
So all these is what will eventually cause the anxiety and all the symptoms we're speaking about. So it's really a challenging period in a woman's life, and I mean everybody in that space at that time needs to understand what they are going through so that they can support them go through the process. The only difficulty or the only challenge is that we don't know how long or when the symptoms would start, because like I said, for some people it can start as early as 12 years before the event.
Okay.
And it can go 4 years, 10 years after the event. So it's a very long period of time that women have to deal with these things. That, so the earlier they understand, that's why education like this is very important. The earlier they understand what they are going through, the more likely they are to learn how to deal or adjust to the issue, so that they can go about their normal duties. Because once there's a sense of normalcy around them, they tend to adjust much better.
Okay. So the issue of management, how are women supposed to manage this strange occurrence that is happening to them?
So I like that you didn't say cure, because there's no cure. It's management, yes. and most women do not need any form of medical intervention. They're able to deal with it and go through the process, and eventually everything will stop and they are okay. Some people may need some medical intervention when the symptoms are too much. I mean, if you're not sleeping at all, that's not good. So you might need some medical intervention. There's some people who also require hormone replacement. To try because the symptoms are so severe, they are giving hormones to sustain them, and then it will be tapered off gradually. But the issue about hormone replacement is that when you are on hormone replacement therapy, then you are also exposed, or you are being exposed to potential for cancer. Because we know that breast cancer, we know that ovarian cancer is related to hormone replacement, especially if you are on it for a prolonged period of time. And so the advice is that do not treat yourself at home.
Okay.
You need to report to the hospital and let the gynecologists are the ones who handle these issues. They will treat you properly so that they will manage your risk versus the benefit. So if the risk is not
worth it,
it's not worth it, then it's no more. Okay. But there are several ways of handling this at home, and I mean the women know these things already. So I mean,
okay. So some real quick questions here. What age does menopause start? This is Ernest from Asuchari.
So I mentioned that the average is between 45 and 55.
Okay.
In Africa, we start a bit earlier, so we are looking at 42, 43, thereabouts.
Okay, all right. Good morning. Please, can menopause cause lower abdominal cramps, heaviness around the waist, and tiredness? This is Mary from Teshi.
Tiredness, yes, but lower abdominal cramps, not likely, unless if you have been having cramps with your menses, that might still be, it might still be there even at, just before you get to menopause. Menopause, once you stop menstruating, you don't have it anymore. But then I suggest that she gets investigated properly so that we find out exactly what is causing these cramps.
Okay. Araba is asking, can a woman's no feeling for sex, in quotes, at the age of 38 be a sign of early menopause?
It could, but 38 is very early. In fact, if you had your menopause, at that age, we would say you are having premature menopause, and so that person might actually benefit from hormone replacement. But then we have to confirm that it is indeed menopause that she's going through.
Okay, all right. Jude from Ahafo Shidiem says, "Good morning. Please, I'd like to ask: is nagging a symptom of menopause?"
Well, nagging itself is not, but if the person used to nag small and now is nagging plenty, it could be.
All right, okay. The last one says, informative, wondering why it's two guys talking about this. Where are the ladies?
Yeah, I also wondered the same thing. But guys care a lot about ladies. So, it's good that we know what we are expecting, because at the end of the day, the lady having the menopause is going to be living with me.
Absolutely.
So I need to know what is going on so I can support her much better.
Yeah, we should know about it. All right.
So we are supporting our women.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to Dr. Kelvin Owusu. He is the medical director of Optimal Care Diagnostics, and he's helped us to, understand a bit more about menopause. We're going to be doing a series on women's health challenges and so on this month, because this is the Women's Month as well as the month of heritage.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed the show. Do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends. This is Breakfast Daily on Citi TV.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Join us for breakfast daily, only on Citi TV.